Hello, welcome to my podcast. Today we're going to talk about entrepreneurship and more importantly, how did entrepreneurship shape me and my life? I'm Bilal Abdu and let's get started. So today we're going to start off getting to know me, getting to know what I do, getting to know my background, and then we're going to talk about the 10 commandments of an entrepreneur and how each commandment I applied it to my career, I applied it to my community and my community services, and the results of each one. Some were good, some were bad, some I took the plunge, some I didn't. Lessons learned. And hopefully, by the end of the podcast, you guys will know what fall traps or what lessons I learned in my life to get to the position I am, to have the results I do based on these entrepreneurship commandments. So there are two big things or two major things about me. First, I'm an electrical engineer. I graduated from NATE from the electrical engineering program in 2012. And the second thing about me is I'm really into youth development, specifically making them leaders. And through these two things, entrepreneurship really came in handy. And I fell through a lot of things. I learned a lot of things along the way. I recognized things that put me down. I recognized things that will increase. I had pushback. I had support. And so today in this podcast, we're going to talk about, as I said, the 10 commandments and how I applied them on these two parts or two major roles in my life as an engineer, as a career in my career, and as my community service, working as a leader in developing young men to become leaders in society. But what I want to talk about is that, or bring up, is I never knew even entrepreneurship was a thing. I went through on, I'm like, I have ideas, I want to move things. Hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? I don't like the way this is done. Let me move this, or this is a better way to do things. And sometimes the results were good, sometimes they were bad, but I never had a name to it. So I was really happy and really, alleviated that I'm not the only one that came up with these things. Because as we discussed in our entrepreneurship classes, you're going to get a lot of pushback. Not everybody is on board when somebody comes, especially that's much younger than them, especially if they're new. And we will touch base on a few things where I went into where people are like, who are you to come up with these ideas? Or who are you to try to change something that has been going on for a while? And, there are times where I doubted myself. There are times where I said, maybe I am the issue, or maybe I'm the negative person, because that's one thing that kept getting pushed back, where people would tell me you're negative. If every time you have an idea and you want to change something, you're negative. So understanding now an entrepreneurship and being an entrepreneur is something really helped me. And then that's one thing about me is that I'm really into not plateauing. I'm always trying to become a better person, trying to do things. Like, for example, I finished engineering. I had a very good track in my career. Well, at the point it got to is like, do I really want to just stay in this one box? I want to open my horizons. I want to have different avenues in my career and in my life. So that prompted me to take this business course and try to get a degree in business. So when I get a degree, I don't know what the next steps are, but it's just my options are open. So today, as I said, today we're going to talk about how entrepreneurship and the 10 commandments of entrepreneurship and how I applied them in my life, how I applied them in my career, specifically as an engineer, and how I applied them in my community service. And so the first commandment is, are you willing to get fired? And that's kind of a scary thing. People are worried and scared about getting fired because you lose your income, you lose a job, and not everybody's down for that. Luckily for me, I work in a company right now that encourages and allows people to question things, to find better way of doing things, to go out of their way or go out of the norm of how things are done to get things done. And they do not put their employees in these boxes, but rather they encourage them to go above and beyond to find better ways to do things, to get things accomplished. And it's never like a set step-by-step process. And if you don't do these step-by-steps, you're out of here. But unfortunately, I wasn't always in that position. So the company before I worked this one really was structural, really was corporate. And they did not really want anybody questioning authority or questioning how things are done. And this resulted in me clashing with my immediate manager, is because I understood and I seen how things could be changed and how things could be improved. But in reality, my immediate manager, he was so worried about his position, so worried about his title, so worried about making sure the higher ups, the stakeholders above him and his superiors are happy with his work, that he would go out of his way to ground and keep people from growing and keep people from becoming better or come up with ideas. And it got to a point where, like, when we had our employee approvals with him or employee apparels or review, and you'll tell him, like, for example, I wanted to get into project management, I have ideas how we could change things. Like, yeah, I'll write it down here on this thing. And then the result was he made sure nothing of it happened. And it got to a point where he did bring up to me a couple times that he didn't appreciate that I would question him. He didn't like the idea where I would go behind his back, go to the client or go to the construction crew and be like, here, this is the better way to do this. Just do it this way. And when I get back to him, he was not happy. But the thing is, not to brag, but I'm pretty good at my job. And he couldn't risk me letting me go because he knew that there was nobody other than me that could come and get things done in a more efficient way. So that was really saving grace. But I was never worried about, okay, am I gonna get fired? I'm gonna say what he wants to hear. That was never the issue in that time. But however, going back to my community service, I did get fired, essentially. Like, you can't really get fired from a volunteer job, but they did remove me from my position in the community, or like official title in the community, because they weren't happy with the way I was changing things. They wanted a certain way to be done, and they wanted a certain thing to be done. In lack of better terms, they wanted these young guys not to develop into leaders, but more develop into, let's just call it, free labor. They wanted them to come in, move boxes, and go home. They wanted them, when it needed something to be done in the building, bring them in, get them to finish that thing, move out. Oh, we needed somebody to set up something for the next event. Call these guys and let them move on. I have no problem with physical volunteering, but at the same time, I wanted to see these guys develop to become leaders in that community. Unfortunately, my superiors or higher ups in that community didn't like that, didn't want to hear that, and they pushed me aside. They're like, all right, we're going to bring somebody else in to do this work. Thank you. They didn't even thank me, but and essentially, thank you for your services, but we don't need you. And I said, that's fine. But I kept going on the side, and we'll keep talking about it in the other commandments, but I didn't quit, being a leader. I still have the same guys around me, and we're coming up with new ideas and new ways to keep growing the group and becoming a better group and getting people to buy into this youth leadership program. And there's no doubt in my mind, when the people in the community see the result, they're going to call us back in, and I have no problem coming back in, because at the end of the day, it's nothing personal. But to wrap it up, just from my experience, I had that. And as I said in my introduction or my background, I didn't even know this entrepreneurship existed. And, my close family members, specifically my father, was always under the impression like, hey, don't rattle the cages. Why do you want to get fired? Do you think it's easy to find a job? And my answer was like, I'm not going to sit here if I see something to do better. And yeah, if it means I'm going to get fired, I'd rather get fired than sit here with my mouth closed and not look into doing things better and just being, another statue or another pawn in other people's game. So to wrap it up, being willing to fire, yes, it's scary, but at the end of the day, when you know you're on the right path and you know there's better ways to do things, it kind of takes the edge off that getting fired is not a big deal. There's always opportunities out there. So the second commandment is going around orders that are going to stop you from reaching your goals, trying to get to your potential, trying to get to where you want to go. And that kind of ties in with willing to be fired, because not listening to orders, not taking them to heart, or trying to find ways to go around them can rub a lot of people the wrong way, especially higher management, especially superiors, because that could be a reason for them to let you go. That could be the reason for you to be fired. But you have to be brave enough to not ignore, completely ignore, but going around these orders that you know is gonna stop you from reaching your goal. And I did kind of touch on that when I was talking about the first commandment, where in my community service, I knew what I wanted these young guys to become, and I know the steps that they need to take to become that person. And the orders that came down on how or what I should be doing with these young guys completely contradicted that. And I was willing to go around these orders and pay the price, which is being replaced or being let go of my position. And same thing with my work. As I said, I know I'm grateful that I work in a company that promotes guys doing whatever it needs to do to get things done, coming up with ideas, coming up with solutions, just trying to get to the final product. But again, knowing, being available or being in that kind of situation allows me to be comfortable by not listening to orders and knowing that which orders I need to listen to and which orders I don't need to listen to ensure that I reach the goal and to get a finished product. Also, at a personal level, you have to understand that you're going to have to break some unwritten rules in your circle, unwritten rules in your life or the people around you. Me personally, I come from a traditional background and a traditional family. And I had to break a lot of traditional things or traditional norms to get to the point where I am at work right now. Like, I had to lose a lot of traditional functions. I have to ignore how things are usually done or traditional norms, because I knew what my end game was, and I knew that if I go down that road, it will slow me down. So this kind of is a big thing. It takes a lot of guts and bravery to shrug off orders, to ignore orders. But I could see why it's such an important commandment, that you do not want to keep listening to orders or things that you know will slow you down, and you know that it's going to take you off your course for the goal. So going around orders is one of the commandments that you need to be willing to do and be brave enough to follow through, even though, as I said, ties in with the first commandment, willing to be let go, fired, replaced, talked down to, become the black sheep, being alienated. But at the end of the day, you know what your goal is and how to get there, and you know what you need to do and not do to get to that goal. Third commandment is do what needs to be done, even if it's not your job, even if it's not your role, even if it's not your position. And I could really attest to this, because going through my career, and again, I kept pointing out my company always allows this. What I noticed, and this was a result of me creating a new group in the company, and I am now leading that new group, and I'm overseeing the growth of the new group and developing the new group, was that there was a huge gap between project manager, who oversees a whole project from engineering, procurement of equipment to construction, and nobody was paying attention to the engineering or the engineering role or the engineering part of the project. And that resulted into miscommunication between the PM and the engineering department, miscommunication between the engineering and the construction crew, miscommunication between engineering and the management. So I noticed, and this was about a year or 2 years ago, that in the product there's been silos where engineering is doing its own thing, procurement's doing its own thing, and the construction was doing its own thing, and the project manager was just focused on construction and procurement. And I knew that I had to do something. So whenever I was assigned as a project as a designer, I took that extra step to become a project manager. So I ended up coordinating with all the departments in engineering, like a different discipline. So for example, we had civil component, a station component, and for a substation component. And I'm ensured that everybody was talking. I'm the one that started making sure that there was weekly meetings between the PM and engineering. And I started making sure that engineering was in continuous communication with the procurement and the construction. And my superior or direct manager noticed that I'm taking this extra step. And he noticed that I'm developing this new role in engineering. And this is something where the project managers noticed and the different managers in the area in the company noticed. And and they allowed me to grow in that role. So they took me out of the engineering designing role and put me in a role to develop this new project engineering lead or engineering lead to help bridge that gap between project management and the different companies. And that all resulted is that with the mentality that I could have easily said, hey, this is not my issue. It's a project manager's issue. I'm going to do what I need to do and I'm done. But in reality, when I seen a gap and I filled that gap, this propelled me not only in engineering, but as a company as a whole. And now I'm grateful for this, but a lot of PMs fight over if they could work with me or put me on a project with them because they know I reached the end goal and the end game. So it's very important to look around and apply some servant leadership where you know as a leader or as an entrepreneur, you're there to help. You're making things better. You're bringing everybody around you up. And even if it's not on you, you know that you have that responsibility. So the next commandment is finding people to help you. You're not going to be able to do everything alone. You're not going to change anything by yourself. You're not going to be able to get to the end game, to the results that you're looking for by yourself. You will need people around you. You will need people to help you in a sense that first off, they have to believe in what you believe. They're not going to follow you if you're not 100% bought in. They're not going to follow you if you're half on, half off. They're not going to follow you when they recognize that you're doing this for a position or a role, but rather you are 100% invested in it, even if you don't have a title, even if you don't have a role, but you know what you're doing is right, and therefore people will be alongside you and on your side and help you get to that next level. And this is the best example I have right now is that going back to my leadership group and developing young leaders. So as I said, I started this a while ago, and I started with a group of 6 to 8 young guys who were at that time 13, 14 years old. And I started with them at that age. And I started developing them, giving them opportunities to grow, giving them roles, giving them small projects, and they excelled on. And they kept growing. And as we kept growing, they started getting attached to me, and because they knew that I was invested in them and I was invested in what they're doing, and I wanted them to grow and develop. And I wasn't doing it so I could be in a position in my community. I wasn't doing it to get status in my community, but rather because I wanted to see them grow. And now they're done post-secondary, they're pharmacists, doctors, and they're in dentistry and so on and so forth, accountants, lawyers. And now they are helping me to reach that goal that I want, to bring that group to the level that we know we wanted to get to. And so getting that help is very important. But at the same time, you need to ensure that because you want people to help you, you yourself have to be bought in. If they notice that you're half stepping, they're not going to help you to the degree you want them to. So it's very important that you help yourself first, bringing yourself to that level. And then at the same time, when you bring guys around you, they will help you as well to get to that next level that you want to get to. Nothing is worse than having a cylinder block while you're trying to swim. So that brings us to the fifth commandment is work with the best. Make sure you work with the best. And one thing I'm actually living through right now, as I brought up that PEL role, my manager tried to get me some help, and he hired what he perceived to be a very high qualified manager, because on his resume he said he's been a project manager for 20 years and he did these projects. But then right away, I noticed that he is not that. He doesn't follow up on emails. He doesn't do go above beyond. He doesn't do any communication. And he is not a project manager, and he is not an entrepreneur that I need in my group to help that new group grow. And I expressed to my manager, I'm like, he's not good enough. And I had the conversation with the manager, and I was like, or the new order or the new worker, sorry. I told him, you're not good enough to be in this group and you have to step it up. So far, he didn't. And right now, it's to a point where I flat out said to my manager, I'm like, listen, you want me to be successful? You want me to get this group to be into the level that we both know we could get to? We cannot have this guy on the team. We're still in discussions to that level, but I had put my foot down where I do not want this guy because he is not the best. On the other hand, I have another guy that I worked with, and he is not into that role right now. And right now, I'm trying to convince him to come in. And I know he has all the entrepreneurship skills, except the brave part where he has to take the step into the unknown. And I'm trying to motivate him to get to that step. But I know that he is the best at what he does, and I recognize that. So I want him next to me. I want him to be on the same level as I am. So it's very important to wherever you work, and if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, look for who is going to help you, and you know they're the best, and they have the same wavelength and mindset that you do, and they have those entrepreneurship skills that you have. Work with them. Go out of your way to bring them into your group. Try to convince them to come and take the extra step with you. And at the same time, don't let people force somebody on you because you know they're not good enough. And you have given them the opportunity, the chance to grow. But if they do not pass the quality that you want, do not hesitate to bring that up to whoever brought them in, and do not hesitate to cut them loose. As going back to my analogy, don't swim with a concrete block because you're gonna drown, and people are gonna blame you for drowning. This commandment is probably my favorite one. Work underground as long as you can. Work in secret as long as you can. One of my role models, I read his biography a lot, had a quote saying that there is no better person that works in secret or works without people knowing what he does, but they notice the results or they see what is the result of that. And two things I wanted to touch on with this one is, number one is, if you work in secret or underground, you will know, or people that are trying to help you and people that will understand that you're not doing it for credit, you're not doing it for fame, you're not doing it for power, popularity, and therefore they know you're invested and they know that you are true to what you're trying to do. And that kind of takes us back to number 4, the commandment 4, getting people to help you, and number 5, working with the best, because the best gets attracted to people that know they're focused and they know where their goals are. And people that are willing to help you, if they know that you're willing to do this and nobody knows what you're doing, or nobody knows like the sacrifices you're doing and you're working in secret, they will be more invested. So that's the first thing I take from this commandment. And the second thing is, working underground and working in secret, the less people put constraints on you, the less people will tell you what you can and can't do, the less people will expect results. Because if you're out in the public and you're reporting to people and you're trying to tell, and people, you have somebody to answer to because you're out there and because you're responsible to someone, they might put constraints on you. They will tell you, how come you didn't reach this at this time frame? We're going to replace you. You're not doing good enough. Even though you know that you needed more time, or they're not seeing what you're seeing. So that brings me back to my youth group. As I said, I was moved on or replaced in my community for the youth group, but that did not stop me from working. I am now doing it underground. I'm doing it in secret, and the guys are doing it with me in secret, and we're letting our results and our program speak for itself. And people are noticing that even when we're working in secret, we're more free, we're getting things done, and people are noticing that, and people are demanding our work. And this result is that because no one is putting constraints on us, and we have nobody to answer to but to ourselves and our expectations and our goal. Seventh commandment is never bet on a race you're not running. And the way I take this commandment, or the way I apply it to myself, is that don't put effort, interest, or any of that into things that will not help you get to the goal you're getting to. Or like, for example, going back to my community service, I could sit and nitpick. Oh, see, this new guy, he's not doing this, and this guy is not doing that. See, I was better in that position, and this is what should have been done, and I should have done this, and I wasted my effort down that road. In reality, the best move was to take a step back, wish them the best of luck, and go on, because I know where I want to go. I'm not going to waste my time and my efforts trying and looking down, or trying to put down that person in my mind, or trying to find faults in them. But rather, I need to focus on what I need to do and what my group needs to do to keep moving forward. So this is probably my second favorite commandment, is ask for forgiveness, or it's easier to ask for forgiveness than asking for permission. And you could go move forward on something, and if you ask for permission, you'll find roadblocks. Maybe we can, maybe we'll see, but don't do anything without our go ahead. Or you just go ahead and do that thing, and then why did you do that? Well, oh, sorry, I never knew. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on any toes. But a lot of times when you go behind somebody's back and get things done, the results speak for themselves. And then it's pretty hard for people to get mad at you when you have the results to back up your actions. So even going back to this new role that I mentioned earlier, the project engineering role, or PEL role, as I said, I went to the project manager and I started submitting the weekly meetings, creating those connections, reaching out and doing that communication. In reality, the way it should have been done, or the way it was expected to be done at that time, was that I had to go to a middleman who was at that time my manager, and tell him of this problems I'm facing, and he goes and tries to do that, deal with the project manager or deal with the other companies. But I knew that manager had way too many things on his plate, and he's not able to do that. So that's why I went behind his back, and I went right to the PM, or the project manager, and I told him, hey, listen, this one needs to be done. Hey, let's set up a meeting. Let's do this. And his first reaction was like, hey, did you tell your manager? Did you tell this person? I was like, nah, if he asks, I'll let him know. So I went to 4 to 8 weeks like that, until the manager caught on that what I'm doing is going behind his back. And the way he caught on is because he wasn't hearing from the project manager anymore. And luckily, as I said, luckily for me, my manager has some entrepreneurship skills and is into innovation. He was actually happy that I didn't go to him and ask for permission, because he knew that he had to say no at that time. And because I went behind his back, and because he knew that I have opened that door where people are realizing, hey, this new role makes sense. So I did take that step. I wasn't sure at that time how my manager was going to take it, but I knew I'll sweet talk him and I'll apologize to him if I had to. But luckily, the results spoke for itself. He was on board, and I didn't have to apologize or ask for forgiveness. But I was glad that I didn't ask for permission either. A lot of people, unfortunately, want things done quick. Very rarely you find somebody that has patience, somebody that will stick through it, somebody that understands the meaning of sacrifice. A lot of people have goals, and a lot of people want to get to a certain point in their life or in their career or anything. But they are not willing to put in the effort, and they're not willing to do what it needs to be done to get to those goals. One of the same role model that I mentioned earlier, another quote was saying, are you willing to sacrifice for your goal, even though you may not achieve it, or even though your children may not achieve it, or they will not achieve it in their lifetime, and you won't see it in your lifetime, and your grandchildren won't see them in their lifetime. So are you willing to sacrifice for that goal? And that's what the mentality you have to have to ensure that you are willing to go that length and sacrifice those hours and sacrifice everything that you're ready to give up to get to your goal. A lot of people don't understand what it takes to achieve their goal. So, like, for example, going back to my project engineering lead, there was a lot of growing pains. There was a lot of, people questioning, like a lot of project managers are questioning me, like, why is this designer coming to me and demanding things that I need to do? And it had a lot of hard conversations. And again, going back to my manager, who at that time wasn't knowing what I was doing, and then he found out, and then I had to explain what we're doing. And all these things and all these roadblocks that come up is a lot of people who just turn back and move away. But you have to understand that you have to overcome these obstacles and you have to do what it needs to take to achieve that goal. And a personal example is me taking this business or getting my degree in business, because in my mind I know where I want both my career to go and where I want this youth group to go, this leadership group to go. And I knew that I didn't have at that time the mindset or the tool set to enhance both of them. And I knew I had to take the step of going back to school, trying to get a degree, learning in all the business courses, and how can I apply it in my new role in my company or where I want to go. The same thing with my leadership account, because I understand where the goal needs to be and what I have to do to achieve them. And the sacrifices that I did so far, and I know that I'm going to continue to do, but at the end of the day, I know where my goal's at, and I'm willing to sacrifice to get to that goal. So as an entrepreneur, you have to understand what your goal is, how to get there, and the sacrifices and what you're willing to do, and face reality that this is what you're going to have to go through to reach that goal. And if you're willing to go through all of that, more than likely you will reach that goal. The last commandment that we're going to talk about today is honoring your sponsors, being grateful for the people that are around you that are helping you to reach that level, and making sure people around you, or in your group, or in that result that people look up to you now because of your entrepreneurship skills, make sure they are aware and they know of those who brought you to that, of those who you looked up to, and those who held your hand and motivated you and kept you going. And then when you honor these sponsors, not only will they be grateful that you're taking them and you understand their weight in your life, but rather they will continue to help you. And those who want to help you will see what kind of a person you are when you honor them, honor sponsors that they're going to come out of their way to help you. So in reality, when you honor your sponsor, people will find you grateful. People will find you that you are happy for them, to help you, and they will come stand by you. And those who are not standing by you will recognize that, and they will come stand by you. So honoring your sponsor is probably a very important commandment that often gets lost. People get to the level they want, to the goal they want, they get to that position they want, and then they forget about people that brought them there. So it's very important to understand and to keep honoring those who helped you along the way. With that, that wraps up the commandments of entrepreneurship and also wraps up this podcast. If I were to wrap this whole thing up, and the lasting thing I could say about entrepreneurship is it gives the skill set to make you better, and in turn make everyone around you better. So going back to my background of community service and my role in my company as an engineer, and now this new project engineering role, is that my main concept is like, how can I make people around me better? And how can I make myself better? So when you apply these entrepreneurship or these 10 commandments, not only will you make sure that you're in a better position in my company, in my career, I'm making my company better. I'm bringing my company into a better position. I'm making the engineering branch in a better position. And same thing in my community service. I'm making these young guys in a better position to be successful in their life. And I'm making the whole community in general a better position to keep striving in society, and reaching out to the younger generations and getting them to that level of being contribution and leaders in society. So that's what entrepreneurship skill means to me, and what these 10 commandments mean to me is that you make yourself better and you make people around you better, and in turn will make society better. So I really hope that you learned something or you took something major from what I took from this entrepreneurship course. As I said in the beginning, I never even knew this it was a thing, and I always thought I was in the wrong, and I always thought that maybe I'm doing something, but something within me tell me not, keep going, and you're on the right track, and you need to rattle cages, and this is what you need to do. And I'm just glad that there is a word for it, entrepreneurship. So thank you for listening into our podcast. I hope you learned something from me today. I hope that I motivated you in some way with my career path, and I'm looking forward to what the next chapters in my life will be after I take this course and apply the information and the knowledge I learned in this course and through these commandments of the entrepreneurship. Thank you again, and I hope you have a wonderful day.